They told us Keir Starmer would be different, that he'd bring integrity, vision, and strength to leadership. But after what we just witnessed, it's clear the mask is slipping. Today, we break down the moment Starmer's polished image collapsed under pressure. Watch closely, because what you're about to see reveals more about this Prime Minister than any press release ever could.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will know that many in the House will be assuaged by his suggestion that he will act in the national interest in relation to tariffs. But most won't have considered that in acting in the national interest, what occurs in Northern Ireland is no longer solely in his control. He knows that exports from Northern Ireland are UK exports, rightly so. Yet imports to Northern Ireland could lay at the consequence of EU retaliatory action. In keeping all of his options open, now we have to live in a world with the consequences of the last government with his support. Will he indicate that he is prepared to take steps to either exempt Northern Ireland from EU action or take retaliatory action if they do not?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this issue, which is of real importance to his constituents and everybody in Northern Ireland. It is a very serious issue. That's why we need to be calm and pragmatic. And I think that's what workers and businesses in Northern Ireland would want to see from this government at a time like this. We are, as he would expect, looking carefully at the details of any retaliatory tariffs announced by the EU, if they are, and what impact they might have on businesses. As he knows, where goods do not enter the EU, then businesses can claim a full reimbursement of any EU duties paid. But I reassure in the interests of Northern Ireland at the forefront of our decisions, and he may want to know that this morning the Business Secretary spoke to the Northern Ireland Executive because this is a serious issue and we need to work together to resolve it in the interests of everybody in Northern Ireland.
Mike Chapp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the last government resorted to damaging keyboard diplomacy, this government is leading, bringing 40 nations together this week to tackle illegal immigration. Like the Prime Minister, I've seen firsthand how counter-terror powers can disrupt threats before lives are lost. That same approach is essential in dismantling the smuggling networks, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree? It's time the Conservatives and Reform dropped the posturing, put national security first and backed our borders bill.
Well, I mean, the party opposite tried an open borders experiment. We are now tackling illegal migration. They talked about flights, Mr. Speaker. We've already removed 24,000 people with no right to be here. Under their Rwanda scheme, which was only ever supposed to return, I think, 300 people a year, what we've achieved in 9 months would have taken them 80 years. We've replaced a gimmick with a real deterrent.
Tim Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has spoken very movingly and with genuine sincerity and affection about his time as a young man in the Langdale Valley and the Lake District in my constituency and how that helped to shape him. So I wonder if he's aware that the hill farmers who maintain those stunning landscapes in the lakes and elsewhere will be earning on average significantly less or barely half the national minimum wage due to cuts in their income, despite the fact they provide the backdrop to the remarkably important tourism economy. So would you agree to meet with me and upland farmers in the lakes and the dales so that we can design a scheme together to end this poverty and equip our hill farmers to produce food and protect our epic landscapes for generations to come?
Prime Minister.
He and I share a love of the Lake District. And we still go back there with our children now. This is a serious issue, obviously, and that's why we've put a record amount into farming at the budget, but also set out our roadmap. But I'll happily make sure that he gets a meeting with the relevant minister to go through that and to take on board any points he has to make in relation to it.
Andy Beales.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hundreds of residents in my constituency at Union Park are facing massive £1 million worth of charges to repair their heating system, to repair fire safety works that haven't been put right by the developer, who has now declared bankruptcy and walked away. Their new freeholder has washed their hands of responsibility and instead is leveraging huge ground rent bills and fines against those residents. Does the Prime Minister agree with me? This is exactly why we have to move forward with our plan, much delayed from the party opposite, to abolish the outdated leasehold system once and for all as part of our plan for change.
Prime Minister.
The Deputy Prime Minister is saying absolutely in my ear. Mr. Speaker, we will end the feudal leasehold system, which has left millions of homeowners subject to unfair costs and unreasonable practices. Our reforms include clear standards for repairs and maintenance, and this will give homeowners a greater say in how their homes are managed. And I know the Housing Minister will have heard what he said.
You saw it. You watched it unfold, live, unscripted, and uncomfortable. Keir Starmer, the man who promised competence, clarity, and calm leadership, stood in Parliament and delivered an intervention that was meant to impress. But what actually happened? His mask slipped. His narrative wobbled. And for the first time in full view, the country saw exactly what this Prime Minister is made of. Let's not pretend this was just another routine speech. What you witnessed was the breaking point, the moment where political theatre failed to cover up the gaping holes in leadership. This wasn't power. This wasn't command. This was a man cornered by reality, desperately clinging to the script while the truth screamed louder than his words. So let's break it down. Let's talk about what really happened. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. 1. The cracks in the calm. Starmer's entire political brand is built on being measured. Calm. Controlled. But calm doesn't equal competence. And today, that calm turned into confusion. When pressed on key issues, on delivery, on promises made and not kept, he stuttered. He deflected. He stared across the benches with a look of quiet panic. The questions were clear. The public demands were clear. But the answers? Nowhere to be found. And in that silence, we didn't hear leadership. We heard hesitation. We heard doubt. And more importantly, we heard fear, the fear of being exposed, live and unedited, in front of millions. 2. Rhetoric over reality. Let's be honest. Keir Starmer's speeches sound good on the surface. But that's all they are, sound. Underneath the polished delivery lies nothing bold, nothing brave, nothing that truly challenges the system he claims to fix. He repeated the same phrases we've heard for months. Working people. National renewal. Ending chaos. But when asked to define, to commit, to lead, he blinked. It was the kind of performance that works in a press release but dies in the heat of real scrutiny. And today, that scrutiny burned through every word he delivered. 3. When the questions get real, Starmer folds. Perhaps the most damning part of his intervention wasn't what he said, but how he responded when he didn't have control. One simple question. One unexpected challenge. And suddenly, Starmer wasn't prime ministerial, he was rattled. The carefully curated image disintegrated before our eyes. It wasn't a catastrophic outburst. It wasn't shouting. It was worse. It was a complete failure to lead in the moment. He defaulted to blame. He recycled vague answers. And the worst part, he tried to laugh it off, as if the country hadn't just watched their supposed leader flinch in the spotlight. 4. The media will spin it. But you saw the truth. Make no mistake, the headlines tomorrow will paint a different picture. They'll call it measured. They'll say he was firm. They'll quote selective lines to make it sound like a triumph. But you were there. You saw it all. And what you saw wasn't a leader taking control. It was a man dodging the truth. Starmer's strength has always been in how controlled his image is. But live in Parliament, under real pressure, there are no edits. There's no autocue. And that's where he fails. This is the side of Starmer the establishment doesn't want you to see. 5. The questions he still won't answer. Why is it that when asked about the economy, Starmer gives generalities? Why is his immigration policy still a blank canvas? Why is housing still a crisis, education still crumbling, and crime still surging under his watch, with no plan, no timeline, no action? You watched him speak for minutes without saying anything real. That's not leadership. That's performance. And Britain has had enough of politicians who perform. 6. Is this really the future? If this is what leadership looks like under Starmer, evasive, vague, nervously choreographed, What happens when the stakes are even higher? What happens in a national crisis? What happens when international allies look for direction? What happens when the country needs courage and gets caution? Because what today's video revealed isn't just a bad moment, it's a pattern. And it's a warning. 7. Your reaction matters more than ever. This video has already started to circulate. People are noticing. People are asking questions. But the media machine will do everything it can to bury this moment. So here's what you can do. Speak. Share. Challenge. Comment. Tag. Distribute. Make sure no one forgets what Starmer did and didn't say today. Because if we let this pass, we're telling every leader that mediocrity is enough. And it's not. 8. The verdict is yours. You watched the video. You saw the questions. You heard the answers. So now it's your turn. Do you trust Keir Starmer after what you just saw? Is this the leader Britain needs? Or just another smooth talker with nothing behind the curtain? We want to hear from you. We want this debate to explode. Because what happens next isn't just about Starmer, it's about whether we, the public, still believe in holding our leaders to account. So don't scroll past. Don't forget. This was the moment Keir Starmer lost control. And Britain was watching.